So what I've had a lot of requests on lately is for a video explaining some of the differences between an overt and a covert narcissist and sort of how to spot the differences. So first let's talk about the similarities. The similarities are all there. Both overt and covert narcissists both have the defining characteristic of narcissism, which is no empathy or a um, serious lack of empathy, very low empathy. Um, Neither one of them can do emotional intimacy. There's usually a problem with the physical intimacy with both of them. They're both very entitled in their thinking. They're both very grandiose in their thinking. They both think that they're superior to other people, smarter than, better than, above others. They both are very, highly manipulative. They both are very hypocritical. They think that the rules do not apply to them. You need to be faithful, you need to be honest, but they're special. The rules don't apply to them. And they're both sort of addicted to feeling special. So they both need to feel that they're super, super special, right? They both tend to have, again, I think I mentioned the hypocrisy. They both tend to have a very sort of low level of emotional intelligence, very low. They might have a high level of IQ, intellectual intelligence, and low EQ. No emotional quotient is very, very low. So those are some of the thinking that goes behind, grandiosity, entitlement, hypocrisy, superiority. Those are all some of the thinking. And then the differences are with an overt narcissist, they are just much more in your face. They're much more obvious. They do wear a mask, but typically their mask is it's much easier to spot. They are much more obvious, and you can usually spot them a mile off. Tend to be showboaty. They tend to be very charming and suave and charismatic, and they tend to have lots of light connections. But with an covert narcissist, they look very different. They can appear to be quite vulnerable. They can appear quite shy, introverted, they can even appear to have like humility, it's actually false humility, but they can come across as quite humble. They can come across as quite self-depreciating. They can act very, benevolent, even altruistic. They act very, they can just be just these sweet, shy, gentle, vulnerable people. Like that is how they come across. But underneath that facade, because it is a mask, underneath that, they have the same thinking, the grandiosity, the hypocrisy, the low empathy, the entitlement, the exploitation. They both engage in exploiting others to get their needs met. They use people. They burn through relationships. Like the same thing as the overt narcissist. They have all the same stuff. It's just they look better on the outside. Dr. George Simon calls them wolves in sheep's clothing because they can appear to be good as gold, better people than normal people. They can appear to have a higher level of integrity than normal people. They can appear to be, quite gentle and kind and benevolent. They can even be quite altruistic. But this is all a mask because underneath it, they are the same. They engage in cheating, infidelity, lies, manipulation, gaslighting, silent treatment, stonewalling, all of the classic symptoms or behaviors of narcissists. And overt narcissists do a lot of the same stuff too. They do the silent treatment to punish. They can tend to be passive aggressive as well. But the covert narcissist is like the king or queen of being passive aggressive. They may agree to your face and punish you later, and you don't even know what you did wrong, right? You have no idea. Both of them engage in highly manipulative communication, word salad communication, vague. They both can be quite sneaky, but the covert is like they're like the masters of being super sneaky. They're very sneaky and, sort of behind the scenes playing a bunch of spy games, right? Neither one of them are authentic. Neither one of them are honest. Neither one of them are able to send their true selves to relationships, not at all. But the covert is much more subtle. They are more dangerous, according to a lot of the psychologists, because they appear good as gold, and underneath it, they are, incredibly duplicitous and disorder. They have a character disturbance. Both have a character disturbance. So, and they both cheat. They both typically have multiple sources of supply going on. They both tend to have, or can have, the comorbid addiction of sex addiction and porn addiction. It's probably one of the most common addictions among narcissists, but they also can have like alcohol, drug, gambling, all sorts of other behavioral addictions or substance addictions. But the sex and porn addiction seems to be very highly correlated with narcissism, although some people that are sex addicts or porn addicts are not narcissists. They can just strictly be addicts, but you do see a lot of narcissists with that. Not all of them, but a lot. And they tend to have 10 different people going on at the same time. But with the coverts, because they're less charismatic, they're more shy, they're not as charming, they typically do not have as many sort of accomplishments as sort of the overt narcissist. It's harder for them to get supply, so they have to work harder at it, and typically they may not have as many sources of supply as the overt, just because they simply can't secure those sources, because they tend to be more shy and awkward and less charming than, say, the overts. So I don't know if this helps you or not, but that's sort of a breakdown of sort of the differences, or some of the differences between the overt and the covert. Overts are just in your face. They're much more obvious. They're easier to spot. And some level, they may even be a little bit more honest, because they're like, yeah, I'm awesome, and I think the world should recognize my awesomeness. The coverts are like, I am awesome, but the world doesn't recognize me, and I am so angry and bitter because they don't see how perfect I am. Oh, that's another thing. They're both perfectionists. From what I've read, though, the coverts are ridiculous perfectionists. They have this incredibly, high standard, especially for other people. But it's again, the hypocrisy comes into play here as well, because the coverts, never live up to, they expect other people to live up to this unrealistically high standard of perfectionism, and they don't even live up to it themselves. You will see a lot with the coverts that they can be really big procrastinators. They don't finish projects because a lot of times they can't even start it, because in their mind, unless it's done perfectly, what's the point of even starting it? So that perfectionism can actually lead to a lot of paralysis with the covert narcissist, which can be, detrimental to their home life or their work life. But in general, the coverts are much more, under the radar, much less obvious, and in some ways quite a bit more dangerous. So I hope this helps you to understand sort of the differences between the two, or some possible differences and similarities. Thanks so much, and have a good day. Bye.